He stood before the most powerful man on earth, and he said no. He stood at the edge of the Red Sea. His people were screaming in panic. The Egyptian army was closing in, and he didn't move. He stood before God himself and argued back. Not once, not twice, multiple times. In the Hebrew Bible, Moses is the man who pushed back against everyone. Pharaoh, his own people, even God. And modern psychology has a name for what Moses had. It might be the most important quality you can develop. Welcome to the Hebrew Stories. Today we go back to ancient Egypt. Around 1300 years before the Common Era, a man stands at a burning bush in the desert of Midian. He is 80 years old, a former prince of Egypt who has been living as a shepherd for 40 years. He had fled Egypt after killing an Egyptian guard who was beating a Hebrew slave. He is not young. He is not ambitious. He has, by all accounts, settled into a quiet life far from the world that once knew him. Then the bush catches fire and doesn't burn up. God speaks from the fire. I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out. Moses pushes back immediately. Who am I, he asks, that I should go to Pharaoh? God answers, I will be with you. Moses tries again. What if they don't believe me? What if they won't listen? God gives him signs. A staff that turns into a snake, a hand that turns white with disease and then heals. Moses tries a third time. I am not a good speaker. I am slow of speech and tongue. God's response is direct. Who gave human beings their mouths? Was it not I? Now go, I will help you speak. And then Moses says something remarkable, something that no other person in the Hebrew Bible dares to say to God. He says, please send someone else. Please send someone else. The Hebrew Bible records that God's anger burned against Moses at this moment. And yet, God did not destroy him. He did not punish him. He gave him his brother Aaron as a helper. This is the man who will confront Pharaoh. Moses and Aaron go to Egypt. They appear before Pharaoh. Their demand is direct. Let my people go. Pharaoh's response is contempt. Who is the Lord that I should obey him? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. What follows is one of the most dramatic confrontations in all of ancient literature. The 10 plagues. Water turning to blood. Frogs covering the land. Darkness so thick it could be felt. The death of the firstborn. After each plague, Pharaoh relents and then hardens his heart again. Moses returns, again and again, each time bringing a new catastrophe, each time repeating the demand, let my people go. Finally, after the death of every firstborn in Egypt, including Pharaoh's own son, the Israelites are released. They leave Egypt in the night, 600,000 men on foot, plus women and children, with their livestock and everything they own. Now here's where this story gets extraordinary, because what happened next, nobody talks about. The Israelites reach the edge of the Red Sea, and Pharaoh changes his mind. He sends 600 chariots, his entire army, after them. The Israelites see the dust cloud rising behind them. They look ahead at the sea. They panic. They turn on Moses. Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us here to die? It would have been better to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Moses answers with one of the most remarkable sentences in the entire Hebrew Bible. Do not be afraid. Stand firm. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Do not be afraid. Stand firm. Be still. In the middle of certain death, surrounded on one side by the sea and on the other by the most powerful army in the ancient world, Moses tells 600,000 panicking people to be still, and then he parts the sea. Here is what makes Moses extraordinary. Not the miracles, not the plagues, not the parted sea. What makes Moses extraordinary is what happens in the desert that follows. Because after the Red Sea, after the miracle, the people begin to complain. The water is bitter. Where is food? We miss Egypt. We had fish there, cucumbers, melons, leeks. Here we have nothing. And Moses does something almost no leader in history does consistently. He doesn't retaliate. He doesn't defend his own reputation. He doesn't punish the complainers. He goes before God, and he advocates for them, even when they turn against him directly, even when they threaten to stone him. Moses consistently intercedes on behalf of the people who are making his life impossible. In Numbers chapter 11, Moses reaches his breaking point. He goes before God and says, "Why have you brought this trouble on your servant? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms, as a nurse carries an infant?" And then he says, "If this is how you are going to treat me, please kill me now. If I have found favor in your eyes, let me not face my own ruin." This is one of the most raw moments in the entire Hebrew Bible. Moses, the great liberator, telling God he would rather die than continue. God does not punish him. God does not rebuke him. God provides him with 70 elders to share the burden of leadership. Now, here is what modern psychology says about this moment, and it will completely change how you understand Moses. Researchers studying what they call moral courage have identified a specific set of behaviors in people who sustain protest under pressure over long periods of time. They don't suppress their emotions. They express them honestly, to safe outlets, and then return to the work. Moses does this perfectly. He doesn't hide his despair from God. He expresses it fully. "I cannot bear this alone. Kill me rather than make me face this." And then he gets up and continues. This is not weakness. This is what psychologists call emotional regulation through expression. The ability to give voice to what you are feeling, in the right context, to the right listener, without letting those feelings destroy your capacity to act. The second quality researchers find is something called conviction-based identity. Their sense of who they are is rooted in something larger than outcome. Moses never defined himself by whether he was winning. He defined himself by the task he had been given. Lead these people, whether they loved him or hated him, whether they trusted him or threatened to stone him. In Numbers 14, when the people decide they want to return to Egypt, God offers Moses an extraordinary deal. "I will destroy these people," God says, "and make you into a great nation instead." Most leaders would take that offer. "Your people have betrayed you. Here is a chance to start over." Moses refuses. He argues back against God. He says, "If you destroy them, what will the nations say? They will say you brought them out of Egypt only to kill them in the desert. Please forgive the sin of these people." Moses argues for the very people who wanted to stone him. The Talmud records that Moses was considered the greatest intercessor in the history of Israel, specifically because he pleaded for people who had wronged him. This is the third quality researchers find in people of sustained moral courage. They separate the person from the principle. Moses was furious with the people. The Hebrew Bible records his anger explicitly, but his anger at them did not change his commitment to them. He could be furious with them and still fight for them. So what does this ancient story teach us today? Most of us will never stand before a Pharaoh. Most of us will never lead 1,000,000 people across a desert. But most of us will face a version of what Moses faced. A situation where the right thing and the easy thing are not the same thing. Where speaking up will cost you something. Where the people you are trying to help turn against you. Where the work is so heavy that you tell God, or whoever you pray to, or whatever you believe in, that you cannot carry it anymore. What Moses modeled is not heroism in the cinematic sense. He wasn't fearless. He wasn't confident. He pushed back against his own calling at the burning bush. He complained bitterly in the desert. He made mistakes that cost him dearly, including being denied entry to the Promised Land himself. What Moses modeled is something more useful than fearlessness. He modeled the capacity to act rightly despite fear. Psychologists distinguish between two kinds of courage: physical courage, the ability to face danger to your body, and moral courage, the ability to face danger to your reputation, your relationships, your standing. Moral courage is rarer and harder to sustain because physical danger is usually short. a battle is won or lost. Moral courage requires showing up again the next day and the next. For 40 years in Moses' case. The secret Moses demonstrates is not that he never felt afraid or exhausted or resentful. The secret is that he had somewhere to put those feelings. He took them directly to God. He expressed them completely, and then he returned to the work. Most of us don't have that outlet. We suppress the frustration. We smile while we are screaming inside, and eventually we burn out. The Hebrew Bible's model for sustaining moral courage is not stoic suppression. It is honest expression in the right place, followed by renewed commitment. Find your burning bush, the place, the person, the practice where you can say, "I cannot bear this anymore," and then return to the valley. 3,000 years ago, an 80-year-old shepherd stood at a burning bush and said, "Please send someone else." He didn't want the mission. He didn't feel qualified. He was afraid, and yet he went. He stood before Pharaoh. He endured 40 years of a complaining, rebellious, ungrateful people. He argued with God. He interceded for people who wanted to stone him. He never entered the promised land himself. And yet, Moses is considered the greatest prophet in the history of Israel. The Talmud says no prophet arose in Israel like Moses, whom God knew face to face. Not because he was fearless, not because he was powerful, not because everything worked out the way he hoped, but because he kept going, even when it cost him everything. The Hebrew word for courage, hazak, also means to strengthen, to hold firm, to take hold of something and not let go. Moses held firm for 40 years. The question this story leaves us with is not, "Are you brave enough?" It is this, "What are you holding on to?" Thank you for watching the Hebrew Stories. If this gave you something today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Next time, we tell the story of a woman who saved an entire people with nothing but her courage and her timing. See you then.